When people talk about Neil Peart, they usually mention the same things first: his legendary drum solos, his massive drum kit, his precision behind the kit, and, of course, the timeless songs he created with Rush. But there's another story, one that many fans never fully realized. Neil Peart didn't just influence rock music. He changed the way generations of drummers thought about their instrument. Before Neil, many rock drummers were expected to keep the beat in the background. Neil proved that drums could become a powerful storytelling voice. His parts weren't simply rhythms. They were carefully crafted musical compositions that helped define every Rush song. What made his impact even more remarkable was his commitment to never standing still. Even after becoming one of the world's most respected drummers, Neil continued studying with renowned drum instructor Freddie Gruber in the 1990s. Instead of relying on decades of success, he challenged himself to relearn technique, posture, and movement. It was an extraordinary decision that reflected his lifelong belief that there was always something new to learn. That mindset inspired thousands of musicians. Neil showed that greatness wasn't about reaching the top. It was about continuing to grow after you got there. His influence also extended beyond drumming. As Rush's primary lyricist, Neil wrote songs that explored science fiction, philosophy, history, personal struggles, and the search for meaning. Albums like 2T112, Moving Pictures, and Permanent Waves demonstrated that rock music could be both intellectually ambitious and emotionally powerful. Then came January 2020. Neil Peart passed away after a private battle with glioblastoma, an aggressive form of brain cancer. The news shocked fans around the world. Tributes poured in from musicians across every genre, many describing him as one of the greatest drummers and one of the greatest musicians of all time. Yet something remarkable happened after his passing. Instead of fading into history, Neil's influence seemed to grow even stronger. Young drummers discovered his performances online. Experienced musicians revisited his recordings with fresh appreciation. His lessons about discipline, creativity, humility, and constant improvement reached a whole new generation. The story of Neil Peart didn't end when he played his final concert. By the late 1970s and early 1980s, Neil Peart had already earned a reputation as one of rock's most technically gifted drummers. But what truly separated him from everyone else wasn't speed or endurance. It was the way he thought about music. Every drum part had a purpose. Listen closely to classics like Tom Sawyer, Limelight, or Red Barchetta, and you'll notice that Neil rarely repeated the same pattern for long. Instead, he built drum parts that evolved with the song. Every fill, cymbal accent, and rhythmic change helped move the music forward. His drumming wasn't there just to support the band, it became part of the storytelling. That approach inspired countless musicians. Drummers such as Mike Portnoy, Danny Carey, Chad Smith, and Taylor Hawkins have all spoken publicly about Neil's influence on their playing. Many have described studying Rush albums for hours, trying to understand not just what Neil played, but why he played it. His work ethic became just as legendary as his performances. Neil was famous for practicing every day, even after decades of international success. Before tours, he would spend long hours refining difficult passages until they felt effortless. Friends and fellow musicians often described him as humble, disciplined, and constantly searching for ways to improve. He believed that talent could only take a musician so far. The rest depended on preparation, focus, and a willingness to keep learning. That philosophy reached far beyond professional musicians. Thousands of young drummers watched concert videos, purchased instructional books, and spent years trying to master his techniques. Music teachers still use Rush songs to introduce students to advanced concepts like odd time signatures, dynamic control, and musical phrasing. For many aspiring drummers, learning a Neil Peart part became a milestone, a sign that they had reached a new level of musicianship. Yet perhaps Neil's greatest lesson had nothing to do with technical skill. Despite worldwide fame, he rarely presented himself as a superstar. He often described himself as a student of music, always eager to discover something new. That quiet humility became just as influential as the incredible performances that made him famous. And years after his final concert, that same mindset would shape an emotional decision made by Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson, one that surprised fans around the world. When Rush finished its final tour, R40 Live, in 2015, many fans sensed it might be the band's last. Neil Peart had made it clear that the physical demands of touring had become increasingly difficult, and he wanted to spend more time with his family. Although he later clarified that he had retired from touring rather than from music entirely, Rush never performed another full concert together. Then came the heartbreaking news in January 2020. Neil Peart had passed away after a private battle with glioblastoma. For Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson, the loss was far greater than losing a bandmate. They had lost a friend and creative partner of nearly 5 decades. In the years that followed, fans constantly asked the same question: would Rush ever return? Geddy and Alex always answered with honesty. They repeatedly said that Rush, as people knew it, could never exist without Neil. His drumming, lyrics, and musical ideas were woven into the band's identity. Replacing him simply wasn't an option. Yet music has a way of bringing people together. As time passed, Geddy and Alex began making occasional guest appearances at tribute concerts and charity events. One of the most emotional moments came at the Taylor Hawkins tribute concerts in 2022, where they performed Rush songs with several guest drummers. Those performances weren't auditions or attempts to restart the band. They were celebrations of Neil's music and of the friendships he had built throughout the rock world. The overwhelming response from fans revealed something important. People weren't asking to see someone become the next Neil Peart. They wanted to hear the music again, performed with the same respect, passion, and integrity that Neil had always demanded. That realization slowly opened a new possibility. If Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson were ever going to share Rush's music on stage again, it wouldn't be about replacing the irreplaceable. It would be about honoring a legacy that still inspired millions. When the time came for Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson to perform Rush's music again, they faced an impossible challenge. Who could sit behind the drum kit once occupied by Neil Peart? For most musicians, the pressure would have been overwhelming. Neil's parts are among the most demanding in rock history, requiring technical precision, endurance, and a deep understanding of the music. But Geddy and Alex weren't looking for someone to imitate every move Neil had ever made. They wanted a drummer who respected the music while bringing honesty to every performance. That's where Anika Nilos stood out. Long before being connected with Rush, Anika had built an international reputation through her original compositions, educational videos, and remarkable technical ability. She became known for her creativity, sophisticated grooves, and musical feel rather than simply playing fast or showing off. Her career earned admiration from drummers around the world because she developed her own voice instead of copying others. When approaching Rush's music, Anika followed that same philosophy. She carefully studied Neil's drum parts to understand their purpose within each song. But rather than trying to recreate every gesture or expression exactly as Neil had done, she focused on capturing the spirit of the music. The goal was respect, not imitation. That approach reflected something Neil himself had practiced throughout his career. Neil admired many legendary drummers, including Gene Krupa, Buddy Rich, Keith Moon, and John Bonham, but he never tried to become any of them. Instead, he absorbed ideas from countless influences and created a style that was unmistakably his own. In many ways, Anika's decision to remain authentic followed the very lesson Neil had spent his career teaching. Fans quickly noticed the difference. Instead of watching someone attempt to replace Neil Peart, audiences saw a musician paying tribute to his legacy while honoring her own artistic identity. For many longtime Rush fans, that balance felt exactly right. It acknowledged an undeniable truth. Neil's place in Rush can never be filled, but his music can continue to inspire new performances and new generations. More than 6 years after Neil Peart's passing, his influence remains stronger than ever. While many legendary musicians are remembered mainly through their recordings, Neil's legacy continues to grow because each new generation discovers something fresh in his work. Visit almost any drum school, music college, or online drumming community, and you'll find students studying Rush songs as part of their musical education. Tracks like Tom Sawyer, YYZ, La Via Strangiato, and Subdivisions are still considered benchmarks for developing independence, timing, dynamics, and musical creativity. For many drummers, mastering even a section of these songs is a major achievement. But Neil's greatest lesson wasn't simply about playing difficult music. He believed that musicians should never stop learning. Throughout his career, he read extensively, traveled the world, and constantly searched for new ideas. His books documented not only life on tour, but also personal growth, reflection, and resilience. Even after becoming one of the most respected drummers in rock history, he continued taking lessons and refining his technique, proving that true mastery comes from lifelong curiosity. That philosophy has influenced artists far beyond progressive rock. Modern drummers across rock, metal, jazz, fusion, and even gospel frequently cite Neil as an inspiration, not just because of his technical brilliance, but because of his discipline, professionalism, and humility. His example reminds musicians that success isn't measured only by awards or album sales. It's measured by the willingness to improve every single day. Fans have embraced that message as well. Around the world, tribute concerts, drum festivals, educational clinics, and online communities continue celebrating Neil's music and ideas. His performances are analyzed frame by frame, his lyrics are discussed in depth, and his interviews continue inspiring people who value creativity, dedication, and integrity.